What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the After You cast. I'm sat down with a very special guest who I've been meaning to sit down with, and we have actually done some work with in the past, and we've actually got some exciting projects coming in the very near future. So I'm looking forward to sitting down and getting to highlight and speak about some of the things she's been up to, who she is as an individual, and some of those things that I just mentioned that we're going to be getting into. So without further ado, would you please introduce yourself to the people?
Thank you, Theo. Hi everyone. This is really weird talking into a camera again, even though I've done it several times. But anyway, first and foremost, thanks Theo for getting me on here.
You're very welcome.
Honestly, it's a pleasure. Mm-hmm. You know that I love to talk. Mm-hmm. And just I'm really excited to be here and just talk to everyone, introduce myself and be part of this sort of movement that you've already started to create. Your content has been just amazing so far.
Thank you.
So inspirational, and I think you're just going up. Just as a little introduction, I guess, I'm Halima, and as Theo's mentioned, we've worked together a few times in the past.
Yep.
And community-based podcast it was. And it was just a bit similar like this, talking. So reaching out to people, getting to know the community, and really just connecting different individuals from different areas of life and walks through life through conversation and just dialogue, which is so important. We've seen that through the pandemic and how very essential it is to just have that connection with people. So I'm just really, really happy and excited to be here. And to be part of this. Definitely.
Awesome. It's good to have you, honestly. It's as I said, we've worked previously on a couple of projects, really, from the local Slough area, from kind of the beginning of the pandemic time and the lockdowns and stuff, was when we got into connection. And it was very enlightening time. Definitely.
When we did the small business big impact project, that really just highlighted just the struggles that everyone was going, and it also it helped to connect people, because everyone realized that they were actually all in the same situation. And I think that's what's important when you open up a dialogue, is that a lot of times there's certain things that are taboo that society doesn't really talk about, or you might be afraid because you think that you're the only person in that boat. But then when we start dialogue and conversations and start to connect with people, you start to realize that actually a lot of other people are going through this same situation, and why not talk about it, because then there comes opinions, there comes ideas of how you can work together and collab and really just help you get through those tough times and create real impact.
Key word being the impact. Going back to what Hali was saying, is we got opportunity to first link up and kind of reach out to local businesses in the area, and I think it was a really important time for everyone, but it was also key to kind of know what was missing in the area. And I think that time really helped me to particularly hone in on what was necessary for where we come from. And obviously we're both from the Slough area, born and raised, so for us it's a little bit more personal, but at the same time you have to be able to strip away the personal part so that we can actually put something forward that supports and become a thing, because I think too much emotions can kind of get thrown into it. You end up kind of being a little bit more passionate about it rather than actually proactive about it.
They're you have to sort of, I guess, come into it more holistically. Like you said, if it's just coming from a one-sided perspective, you kind of lose the bigger picture to things. And that's why it's so important for hearing what you're doing here, Theo, is hearing from different people across the community, different views, and just connecting all of that and really bringing in and forming that bigger picture. And that's what's like obviously the most important thing, is that we can all individually get lost in our tracks and our feelings and our situations and like what we go through, but then and even just personally, I think having that holistic idea and like seeing how other people are doing it and seeing the like how it all actually fits in together, like actually I'm part of a piece, like there's no need, because every person's voice is important, but then just allowing to see that actually my voice fits in as part of a community, and that can actually help to like benefit me for the better. I think that's what like it's important. I think
it's huge. Especially for young people coming up as well. You know, one of the big things that what we previously did, obviously anyone that doesn't know, Small Business Big Impact was a project that we did for the local Slough area, where we was kind of going around talking with different businesses and brands that have been here for a long time. Some people are a little bit more new, and it was just an opportunity to highlight some of the differences and how they've struggled, and some of them are trying to find a way to move forward. So, you know, from something as simple as a conversation to spreading awareness about what their business actually does, to just being a lending ear and being able to offer services. It was a very difficult time for people to be able to pay for all the same things that they did usually. Some people lost some of their resources, and it was a tough time. So us just going around and actually like touching base with them just helps to further and build the network of where we come from, so that people like ourselves or young people or people in business can look and say, all right, there's a good reason, and there is still a community that exists in the area, even if it isn't necessarily visible. You know? Yeah,
definitely. That's like the most important part of it, is raising that awareness to people in the local community about what others are doing, and seeing how you can essentially be part of their movement, or like be part of helping them like move forward. And I think that's what we took out of the pandemic, is that there's always something that you can offer, which is not always highlighted, like Theo, you've mentioned. Like I think when we did that, like a lot of like businesses looking at what other businesses were doing, everyone was taking something out of something, and that's what was like, I think, really like, even though it didn't last as long as maybe we envisioned, I think maybe that aspect was still taken out of it, because different organized businesses got to see what others are doing, got to share and sort of like, you know, learn from each other. And then on the other side of that, like the local community, like the public, got to see, like, you know, got to like be highlighted, like where, you know, you could, if you wanted like to go into like a form of work, or like, you know, just like highlighted the things that are available for the local community, because that's not really highlighted in Slough, I don't think.
No, definitely not. I mean, we know from obviously experience that, you know, the Slough area has been lacking in you know, media representation and networking. There aren't very many strong networks that are visible to, you know, the naked eye. There are a lot of hidden and private institutions and groups that are very supported and have been going for a long time, but when you look at it from an art and creativity perspective, there really isn't a lot that stands out.
Definitely.
Because ideas are great. As I said, a lot of us have ideas. Many people from wherever they come from have ideas, but it's about turning those ideas into action, and then having actually real plans that the community and people where they come from can feel proud to say, hey, someone from where I come from actually is putting out professional content, a professional image, and then that inspires others to kind of follow in suit in their own way.
Acting like essentially like a role model for others. And I think that's what's really important in Slough as well. Like you said, like there are loads of people doing amazing stuff here, and that's what, you know, you've already started to do here, Theo, like giving people that space and voice to like pitch out almost what they're doing in the background, in the scenes that may not have been recognized, or you know, like not being platformed. so people might not know that they're doing this amazing thing. And there are loads of people in Slough, in the community, that are doing incredible things, but there isn't that sort of sense of togetherness or like a central platform to really highlight the amazing work that people are doing.
Yeah, that's true.
And I feel like if there was that collaboration and there was that awareness, would have these amazing hubs or places that people know that exactly, like people know exactly where to go to if they have an idea, if they want to contribute to something. They'll be like, right, I know that there's that amazing organization or that amazing person that's started this, that I can go there and get information or contribute my idea or opinion to grow that and make it even better. So I think it's just highlighting and bringing people together at the same time. Yeah,
definitely. We want to bridge those gaps, you know, and you know, obviously we'll get a little bit into that further as we get into the episode. But before we get carried away with you know, obviously just our general passion for community and, you know, different creative projects, let's bring it back a little bit so the audience get a chance to obviously find out who you are, because obviously this is after you, and you know, I know who you are. I've got a chance to work with you, and I'm, you know, very inspired constantly when I get a chance to work with you, because we always tend to come up with quite creative ideas, but it's not just creative conversations. You know, we can have a lot of those, but I think it's when you put action behind it and you have an actual project to engage in, whether it's small, it doesn't necessarily matter. Everyone's perception of things is all different at the beginning, but ultimately we all want to get somewhere where you know, we create something that is noticed, that's seen, that can inspire people. And so let's bring it back a little bit for the people, Hali, and just give them a background on kind of some of the things that you're passionate about and some of the things that you're into.
Sure. So I'm trying to like think back to where we initially like met.
So it was right around the COVID period time, but it's like when I think it was around the first or second lockdown, in between that time, and we was reached out to, and then that's the first time we connected then, right?
So I'm trying to think of like the specific cause. So obviously it was community based. It was like about a project of community. So the person that brought us together obviously knew that we were both really like, I don't know, I guess like passionate, about the community, about bridging gaps in Slough, and really like just highlighting the Slough as a community. So I guess like starting from that's where like what I guess it's like at the foundation of who I am. I'm a big people person. So in terms of like academic background, I've always been that child in school who was like very like book focused. I like, you know, was a good girl, you know, got good grades, particularly like I was interested.
Parents were on you?
Yeah, my parents were on me, like, you know, being like one of the eldest in my family. They were like on it. But even aside that, like I really did like I was very curious individual, still am, but just like I think I got to like explore that curiosity and where that like leads to, and what like sort of fascinates me more now, which I'll go into in a minute. But essentially like so I was very curious, and I think there's something about science, you know, the curiosity just got to me, I guess. You know, it's so big and expansive, but yet so small and precise.
And finite,
exactly. And that's what interested me in science. So like I was like, you know, into my books and all of that, but then at some point through that, I was always engaged in my community as well. Like coming from Slough, I remember in 2000 and something, gosh, I don't even remember, it was a long time ago, but like I won like Princess of Britwell. Just to put that out, that you probably don't know that about
No, I don't. That's the first time I heard that.
That's the first time you're hearing this as well. So some of you watching this, if you're from Ends, you might have seen me like in the newspapers and be, you know, I'm a regular face on the Slough Observer. Slough Observer.
I love that. You did tell me that one.
Yeah, so I won like Princess of Britwell. I remember it was like a competition, and there was like a massive fair that happened every year.
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
And so like young people got to like, it was like a pageant sort of like, and I remember like me and my sisters taking part. And the funny thing is that I didn't want to take part because in my family I've always been that person, like I like change, like I'm about, you know, businesswoman, you know, I'm about like getting things done, connecting people. I was all about that. I was like not interested about play or like girly stuff. I was like completely like not about that. So that, but my sister was like, you know, she was the girly one. She was like, pageant, yes, let's do this. Like, and then my mum was like, just do it anyway. So my mum forced me to do it alongside with her.
Okay.
And then when I got up on the stand to talk about what I wanted to do, I was like, I can't remember specifically, but what I do remember is it was something about change, and I was like, I want to unite the community in Slough, and I want to create more youth clubs around Slough. I want to get young people energized and involved. I wanted to bring everyone together in the community, and everyone just stood there and watched me. Was like,
who's this chick?
Who is this? Who is this? And then I ended up winning, obviously, and got and then got driven around, and I think it was like a horse and carriage or something around Slough.
Nice.
And then I think from that point on, and I was about 10, 11, and I think from a fairly young age, I knew within me that I wanted to help people. I was a people person, and I wanted to create change in my community. I wanted everyone to be happy, and not just I wanted for people to have a happy state of mind, not just happy as just happy, whatever that means, but a real happy state of mind. People to live comfortably and enjoy life, mentally, physically, and in all other ways. At a very young age I was thinking this way, but I just didn't take it into action because I didn't know how to.
Right, and you're young as well,
and I was
you're
young,
still figuring out the world, so I can imagine.
And my parents obviously being immigrants and coming to this country you knew when they were a bit young as well.
Where do your family come from?
So my family, we're from East Africa, so Tanzania.
East Africa.
So they were very new to this country, and they, had they not been new, then maybe would have been able to direct me into maybe join the youth council or which now thinking about it and also working in that industry, I would how with the young people that I work with now, I'm thinking I would have loved to do something like that when I was younger, but obviously just unfortunately it wasn't made aware to me at that time when I was young, and nor to my parents. So at that age, I just I always had that sense of community work, development, helping people, talking with people and stuff, despite me being a very shy child as well, because I was quite shy, but I was very strong-willed, I think. So then that was basically how it initially started. Nice. And then I gained a sort of I started to explore different avenues as I grew up, getting involved in even more community work
projects and different
projects. So I ended up getting involved in organizations like Health Watch, after doing a degree in the sciences, I thought, how can I connect that with people? And I was like, well, Health Watch, they look into the community and sort of observe and sort of act as an eye for their different healthcare services around the community. So I was the only young person in the board, and I was part of that board, and it was, they were all not being rude to my ex-colleagues, but I was the youngest person. I was at that time 20, and having interviews and also interviewing. I remember interviewing the lead practitioner for Slough.
Oh wow.
And they ended up getting the job, so I don't know if she remembers me, but I ended up interviewing her, acting on behalf of a young person, so I outlined what would you do for young people,
I get you.
So getting involved in that, and then even going as far as doing international volunteering. So I was out in Ghana and volunteering there for 3-4 months.
Nice. That must have been a cool experience.
It was an amazing experience. It was a life-changing experience. I know that's very cliche for someone to come from after going volunteering abroad or doing the gap year, very cliche to come back. I'm like, oh my gosh, life-changing. But honestly, it was tough for me. I didn't experience it the way others did, per se. Others would come back and be like, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. For me, it was if I'm honest, it was so bad, it was dreadful.
Really?
But why I say it's a life-changing experience is because of that. Because
would you say more about what you saw or the experience itself?
A bit of both.
A bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both. I remember coming back and having my first meal back in like the UK after the whole experience, and I was having breakfast with my parents, and I was just looking on my plate, and I was just like, I literally just started crying. I was like,
yeah, because
I just like remembered like the experience that I had there.
Yeah,
it always makes me emotional.
I could imagine. You must have seen some things. I mean, my first experience going to Africa was going to Gambia and getting getting to see the realities of how different people have to actually live, and then, like you said, back here we take so many things for granted that we don't, and it's natural because it said if you haven't experienced it, you can't enforce that upon other people.
It's how we've just grown up, I guess, what we've been exposed to and what we used to and stuff. But it definitely like opened my eyes up to like to things, and then even more so when I came back, I was like so charged up, and I was like, well, if we have all these opportunities, but I'm still seeing young people like on the streets, you know, despite all these opportunities, why are we not like taking advantage of it, you know? So like, and then after that, I kind of like on the back of my head made it a mission to really inspire people. And I remember putting up my first post on Instagram, and I was like, from now on, like my sort of presence and what I want to do is inspire people in whatever way that is, whether it's through my creativity and love for like fashion. If any of you follow me on the Instagram, shout or like my action, like community work, and like, you know, in terms of like career and helping young people achieve what they want to achieve in education, in like life, in terms of like their mental health, or just aspiring, do different talks and stuff about like things that like impact real people, like, you know, racism, that kind of stuff. I started to get involved in those kind of projects, and I made it, still is like my mission to just inspire people through positive means, because there's so many bad influences. Despite the privileges that we have, there's so many influences that take people backwards, especially young people. And I just kind of like in the back of my head, as well as through actions as well up front, made it kind of like my mission to like inspire people through positive means. And essentially that's and I guess like from the friend that connected me and Theo, that's how they saw of me, and they were able to see that from me, which I was grateful, because now I'm sat here.
It's a pleasure to have you, honestly. You know, I've obviously grown up in the town, and it takes a little bit of time, and it takes a specific time until you start to until things start to click, and you start to realize kind of what your purpose is, and kind of the things that you've learned, what they actually mean, and why you was actually learning them.
Definitely.
Because a lot of the time we have to be very lucky growing in this, coming up in this country, because the difference between what I noticed between here and, let's say, third world countries, or, you know, my family are from the Caribbean, of course we all come from Africa, so, you know, it's black people,
motherland,
of course. So when you see how a lot of the motherland and even parts of the Caribbean have to operate, it's different, because the things that we take for granted, as I said before, we can just go through a career path, learn things without realizing how much time, energy, effort, money goes into actually acquiring those things. But it's just so normalized here, whereas in other places, in other parts of the world, you know, you just don't get those opportunities. So for me, I see it as I always want to inspire the younger version of myself, because everyone always says, like, you know, if you was young, what advice would you give to the young version of yourself? And I take it a step further, and I say, how would you actually inspire the young version of yourself? Because it's one thing to just give them little bits of information, but imagine there's a young version of a person that looks like you, and they're like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Then it's a case of, you know, for me, I looked at it like I didn't want to be in a position where I actually wasn't living the way that I should be. I wasn't living in the purpose, and I was kind of avoiding it just to make money or just to get by. But at the same time, we live in a first world country, so money is important.
Definitely,
so I quickly realised that you have to find that balance between your passion and your purpose and being productive in the real world as well. So allocating that in the right places, connecting with the right people, and that's why connections and relationships are so key. So as I said, bringing that all back to this project itself, I think this is very much a project about bridging the gap bridging the gap between community, business, people, youth and olders. I tend to find that I'm very comfortable sitting down with loads of different types of people, from
Definitely.
old people to young people. So yeah, having somebody like yourself on board who kind of resonates with those same ways of thinking, I think it's only natural that, we come together and create a project that could, continue and further that. So yeah, it's just great to have you on board, and just to see that you're kind of in that same frame of mind in terms of actually giving a part of yourself to help build up other people. So,
yeah, definitely. I just see it, I guess, when you asked me like to just like be part of this, I guess just like another extension of like I said, like my goal that I set to myself, to just inspire people in whichever way that I can. So yeah, just bring in more positivity. After like the pandemic and stuff, I think it's really opening up a lot of people's eyes, like as to what's important, to life, like what's most valuable in life. And that is literally just the connection with people.
Very true.
Like you said, like obviously, like to live, there's the finance aspect and stuff, but you can have finance and you can have money, but you can still not be in the right state of mind to be able to use that money to live a prosperous life. And
not knowing what to
spend it on. Exactly. So I think it's really like tapping more into like a good state of mind and a healthy state of mind, and and connecting and having conversations that are taboo and not talked about as often as they should be. And just connecting. I think.
Agreed. I mean, the point about sustainability makes me brings up something in my mind that actually I wanted to discuss it with you about, which is the fashion, because I know obviously I see online that you've done bits of dabbling in your own personal style of fashion or styling yourself and your own looks and things like that. But one thing that stands out is, like you said, the sustainability of the fashion itself. That's something that shout out to Maven, which was the first fashion outlet boutique that I ended up working for, which is we previously spoke about when I was in Chicago. And there was an amazing opportunity where I kind of got to go work for a menswear company, menswear brand that was all about high-end fashion, but sustainable, high quality products that were actually handcrafted or made by real hands. So it wasn't just about sourcing the hot brands or the hot trends. It was more about finding unique elements of style and fashion that had a story behind it. The materials were sourced well, the people were looked after, fair trades and things like that. So there's a lot of homework that went into the design of that, and unfortunately obviously the company isn't still running at the moment, but the owner, Noah, who I'm actually still quite close with today, shout out if you're watching, by the way, he taught me a lot in terms of learning the true value of like the things that you put on your body.
Definitely.
And my initial thoughts, and a lot of people would think this as well, is that when you see expensive price tags on clothing, that is always attached to someone who's just trying to milk off of the top of you, or get something out of you first, or spend some extortionate amount of money. But it's not always the case, because there are some brands out there that actually really care about sourcing good quality fabrics and things like that. So bringing that all back around to how a question essentially, how did you get into the whole ideas of the sustainable fashion, and what does kind of fashion mean to you in general?
That's a good question. So like I mentioned, I've always been into fashion. I was telling Theo I've always, I guess, also been an expressive person, so I kind of got into it by accident, which a lot of people who are like learning about sustainable fashion, ethical fashion, eco fashion, a lot of people that are in that industry and in that field will tell you kind of the similar stories where they just got into it by accident, because ultimately we all have a passion for fashion.
It's true, and whether you think it or not.
And that this might come out a little bit offensive to some people, but personally, as a personal view, I genuinely think that when you have a passion for fashion, it's not about going into the high street and seeing what's out there now. It's not about that. I feel like anyone who has a real sense of creativity, actually the first thing that you do is you look in the past. And that's where I got introduced to it. Like, my sister's a massive fashion, like, we all are, like, just a very creative family. But specifically my sister, like, is the one that kind of my older sister was the one who kind of like introduced me into it all. You know, she introduced me to looking back. Like, if I want to formulate my own style and sense of me, I needed to like look back, and that's where like my sustainability journey, I guess, started. Was I looked back and I really enjoyed the classic looks and style, you know, learning about the Chanel suit. And also, it's like what you said, it's like everything has a story behind it. Every garment has a story, and that's what I enjoyed most about it, is like learning what if you look back, the story is like looking back at like the Chanel suit and how that initially started. It was to empower women in a really, really like male dominated world. And you'd find a lot of that when you look back into like the like, you know, early starts of fashion. Like, they each have their story, and their stories are very like people driven and value driven, whereas now everything is just very superficial, like very trend based, very
click ready.
Exactly, click ready. It's very like, you're not like, the people element of it is not taken away. Like, who made it? Why was it made? You know, why you know, should people be wearing this? That is no longer important. It's just about whether it's trendy, fashion, like this influencer is wearing it, or you know. So anyway, that's what kind of like got me into fashion, is looking back and really just enjoying the classic looks of items, and also enjoying the stories behind them. And then by accident I just got into like vintage, you know, like the old styles. And then the newer aspect of it was shopping in charity as well. Like, because I guess you
like
also
thrift store shopping and
then that's where you also got to explore like old fashion as well. But then at the same time, just cheap and cheerful stuff. You know, and it's
affordable fashion as well.
Affordable fashion. Just seeing them being there, and when I looked in my local high street, like in Slough High Street, they just seemed empty. And I thought, well, I could, like that thing that I saw on a mannequin in like Topshop or H&M, I was like, I can recreate that look and just go into like my local cancer research and actually find those items there. It's just about like, you know, it's about like knowing that knowledge and like using your creativity from what the past shows, from what the new trends are showing, and like just formulating your own sense of style. And I feel like when you find your own sense of style, you actually then just naturally come into thinking of, well, okay, I enjoy this. Okay, how was this made? Who made it? And then that's when the ethical part and the sustainable part leads on, and that's what opened my eyes up to like a sustainable. And I started to do my research on it, and obviously started to see the impacts of, you know, how people made them, the fabrics, the like conditions that they maybe have to work in, you know, where they're sourced from, how much they get paid, you know, all of that stuff, and how it really like, you know, also impacts that environment as well. All of that comes into play. It's very intersectional. And I guess that's essentially how I got into like sustainable fashion. If I had to put it in one sentence, it's just looking back and seeing how it worked before, and seeing where we're at right now. And I think that just like, I guess it also relates back to like how I see change as like looking back from where we were and looking into like how society is now and where we want it to be in the future. That's how I see it. I want us to live in a sustained world. I want us to live in a world where there's equality for everyone, for those that enjoy the garments as well as those that make it. That's what I want. So looking into the future, looking to see how we can streamline our processes and really sustain our processes to make sure that everyone has a good life, you know, as well as, you know, sustaining the earth as well, the place that we live in. So that's how I came to, you know.
No, I love that. I mean, for me, very much the same as well. Like my essence and understanding of fashion began at a young age, and you know, my grandfather was originally a tailor, so we've always had that understanding of a professional, classy look. But I think what happened as my dad's generation came in, and obviously particularly my dad, it was more about the educating of how you wear things. Because once you understand the quality of what you wear, sets a certain image about what people expect. Then it becomes about how you wear it, and then kind of the full circle of that was when I learned about when I was working in Chicago, was learning about the actual stories behind the brands that made them unique. The biggest thing that pulled my attention was the timelessness of certain brands, and menswear kind of gets away with this a little bit easier because you kind of it's a little simpler in terms of designs. You don't see as much of a radical crazy shifts in patterns and fabrics and things. With menswear, it tends to be a little bit more timeless, leather jackets and denim and things like that, which last a long time, selvage, which like you wear it in. It was much more about the rugged, how it fits and forms with you, and then it was kind of the stories behind it. So once I kind of got the educational side behind about, okay, these are the brands that stand out uniquely to me, because it wasn't just about how the clothes looked and on a model walking down the runway. It was more about the story behind the brand, where they source their fabrics from. It could be as unique as we source our fabrics from this small village in this one part of the world, but it enables us to fit a certain demographic, but then also it's also open-minded as well, because when people tap into it and they see it's a storied brand, it's like that story may not attribute to you, but you can at least now respect that it has a value and it has an origin story. But conversely, I'm very much, I wouldn't say against modern fashion, but I find it hard to really invest into, because once you understand and you've learned, it's like once you've opened the box and you understand what's in it, you can't just kind of close that back and just imagine you don't know now.
Definitely, you have to look deep into it.
So I think most people themselves, if they got the chance to actually do their homework on where we source our fabrics from, which places, which countries, which companies actually are thorough in how they actually present that, then I think that you'd have a different view of things. But that's for a whole nother we can have a whole conversation about sustainable fashion overall. But it's great to hear your perspectives on how you how you got into it as well. And it's really interesting. You talked about you could literally piece together certain things from the cancer store or a charity store and make it look like any of this stuff that we see on high streets.
Definitely. I guess that's what I tried to do on my personal platform, like on Instagram, is I'm more and more starting to shop secondhand, thrifted, charity stores, or just companies that really value ethical and sustainable movements. So they really source their materials and stuff from well sourced places, and don't use sweatshops and all that kind of stuff. So really just really
pay their workers
and all of that stuff. So just really thinking about their what do you call that, their chain, I guess, their chain in logistical chains. So making sure that everyone is benefiting from that, rather than there's other companies where the people down at the bottom of that chain who are making the garments and stuff don't really get to benefit from them, and it's the people that end up wearing them. So that's another thing that I really think about is whenever I buy a piece of clothing, or I always think okay, whilst I'm enjoying this and looking really good and feeling myself, what's the other end looking like? What's the the other side of that chain? The people that made them, are they sat there enjoying, having a good time? Did they get a good wage for taking the time and really sewing these pieces together? That's what I think of. But like you said, I think it's just about just having the open-mindedness to do your own research. And there's so many resources out there. It's just about wanting to learn.
It's the will.
It's the will of wanting to learn. And and once that happens, when you open up that Pandora box, like you said, you can't close it and just
and
you want to know more and more, and you will just you will just fill yourself with so much knowledgeable information that you probably didn't know or were unaware of in the past. So
I'd say that made me think really quickly when you were speaking. It's almost like deception is born in the margins. So essentially, when you look at, because it was making me think obviously fashion, but then it also made me think of farming as well, because when you think of fashion itself, the deception only really can begin when we start to dabble in the margins. So essentially, when we start to think about what the profit margins are for individuals, like we said. So let's say it's fashion. The person that's sewing together those fabrics, who works in another part of the world, are they going to receive the same level of value for that handcrafted piece of textile, or that, you know, garment or whatever it is, in comparison to what the company are going to now put their branding on it? And not to say that should be devalued just because they're the company and they didn't make it, because I think each step of the way has an important value. But I think what's happened is we're kind of misconstrued on where the value actually lies.
Definitely.
So some people will sit and say, hey, the people who are making it, they should be paid the most. Other people would say, well, the company came and without the brand they don't really sell. But I think it's an all-encompassing story. And I think the people at the top, the brand makers or the companies, they have the most responsibility, because if you're going to put it out to the public as a product or a service, then essentially you need to place the right amount of value in that thing that you sell, so that the people can actually, you know, feel comfortable in what they're buying. So that's what I said, it made me think of you know, essentially deception's really in those margins, because that's where they can really start to pull and push. You know, the difference between H&M clothing to Prada and Gucci clothing. Is it necessarily the handcrafted skill? Or is it the story and the status and the fact that Prada can sell to expensive clients or wealthy clients, as in comparison to H&M's targeting, you know, generally working class people? So it's two different economic groups that you're targeting. And same with farming. That's the same way as when we see issues in fair trade farming for, you know, our fruits and vegetables. Same thing, the people putting that hard work and labour on the farm, are they really going to see those margins of value when you put your sticker on there and, you know, it gets sold out into a supermarket? So it's in everything, I think, now as well. It's not just fashion. I just notice it very much in fashion, and particularly art and creativity. I tend to find that people actually put the art, the passion, the creative energy into things. I don't think you can do that and then have the equal amount as passion in selling it. Definitely. When it comes to the sell, that's where I think that, you know, a new group of people or a new way of thinking is needed to really get it out there. So I think it's important that those two groups are married together from the beginning. So whoever produces or creates the product or service, they need to be married quite well to the people who are going to help market it and get it out to the world. And I think there's always been a bit of a disconnect with that.
So I think it's like power plays as well, isn't it?
100%.
Like you said, the ones that are like, you know, doing the branding and stuff, they're the ones that usually tend to have the power. So so that's another issue. Like that's, I guess it's just the power plays. The people that have the power obviously are going to have the most freedom to do what they want. But then where the power comes from is the consumers.
I was just about to say that.
Where the real power comes from. That's what people need to realise.
That's why
because a lot of people say, well, one person going vegetarian is not really going to solve the climate crisis. You know, you get those all the time, right?
Of course,
or like you shopping in charity. You know, I've gotten them for my family, for my friends. You know, I've gotten that. Like, you know, and whenever like I've made like conscious like choices and stuff, and it's just like, but obviously one person doing it, you're right, that's not going to make a difference. But these companies are driven by their consumers. If people are not buying, they're not benefiting. So they will only move in a direction that you're sending them to. True. So if you're buying, they will continue doing what they're doing.
100%.
But if you stop and say, well, I'm going to halt that because I'm not happy about this element, and we did it as a collective, then there will be change, you know? And then they'll be forced to go in a different direction. And we've already started to see that, even though some may be classified as like within fashion as greenwashing.
Okay.
I don't know if you've had that term.
I haven't heard of that, no.
So it's like when certain companies and businesses try and say as a form of like trend, because they know how people are much aware about the unethical stuff that are going on in fashion, and they try and like just put an element that they're trying to be more sustainable.
But so really like the fair trade stickers.
Exactly, the fair trade stickers, you know, that kind of stuff. To just, you know,
so hey guys, we're good.
Yeah, like, greenwash people, like, you know, like brainwash, but greenwash.
Yeah.
Like we're sustainable, we're green, but not really.
Yeah.
Like we're the facts. We're like give us the transparency of like where your products are made and who's making them and how much you're paying them. Where's that stuff? You know, you're telling us that this is sustainably like sourced, but where is it sourced from? You're not giving us that information. So
yeah. No, that's huge. I mean, I think it comes down to the clarity from beginning to end, doesn't it? It's like somewhere along the lines, I think you have to ask yourself as an individual, you know, what you're interested in. Because a lot of people, they will just say they don't care. It's not an interest for them, and that's completely fine. Like, no one's forced to do anything. But I think when you do start to think about the things that you create and what you put out into the atmosphere, it's important to pay attention to, you know, what kind of messages you're actually sending, because you may be sending a completely different message to what you actually intend to. So like, that's why I think things like this, where we get to sit down and we get to connect actual real people and conversate about these things, you start to build a little bit of a network of communication, education, knowledge, and now it's not going left and right to find answers. It's kind of, you know, you've got the right people who can lead you in the right direction. It's just about being connected to them. So taking that all back to like Slough and where we come from, that's why I'm very passionate about this project, and, you know, working with people like yourself who can really just pique people's interest in terms of okay, these are people from where I come from, cool, they, you know, they sound like me, they look like how I would look like, and you know, they resonate, and they have those types of a type of mentality that is outside of the box, or even if it's just awareness. Like, Slough's one of these kind of places where we have an amazing and abundant amount of options and people that are, you know, truly professionals in their craft. They're, you know, they've put the work in. We have Olympians here. We have
like people wouldn't know that. Like, just so many.
We've got Olympic athletes that have come through here through Windsor, Slough and Eton and Hounslow. You know, we've got some of the top grammar schools in this country, top education, like,
top
from
politicians,
private
you know, like
politicians. You know, even businesses in themselves. There's been a lot of headquarters and HQs that have come through Slough and used Slough as a place to build and grow.
We've got actors and actresses that
William Herschel's of this world back in the day with astronomy, and you know the founder of Uranus, I believe, as a planet.
I should know that, but I don't. Sorry.
I might need to be fact checked. I'll double check that. But obviously, I went to Herschel Grammar, and I mean that was a common talked about thing of William Herschel in terms of an individual. But he was somebody that, you know, was given a grant by the Queen to actually live in Slough, and essentially was given money to study the planetary systems, astronomy, and things like that. So we've got a lot of founders. We've got, you know, a lot of people that are way bigger than what people think when they think of Slough. But unfortunately, there is no one place to point to say, okay, this is where they are. This is where I can find them. This is a website, anything.
Well, that even exists just to start off.
Exactly.
You know.
So what happens is young people come up, and then this narrative gets spun that essentially we don't really have much to offer. We're here to just essentially be used and. You know, go and work for other people. And it's sad because like you said, these young people grow up thinking that, there's actually nothing here. A lot of these amazing young people, or even older people, whatever they may be, go off and then put their efforts and their professionalism in other areas and help build and sustain other areas. Well, Slough then is just left kind of like, you know. But imagine if
if we connected and used our resources and collabed effectively within this community, like imagine like the impact that it can have on our community. Like, a lot of people would want to stay here and invest their time and their professionalism in this town because they know where to find things, and they can clearly and visibly are aware of the different things that are going on, you know, from businesses to like organizations to like art and creativity. If we're able to highlight that and platform all of those things that are happening and taking place and bring it all together, I think we will like grow as a community, and we will definitely see a difference. But because nobody really knows what's going on, like it's just kind of like, you know, like there's nothing here, so I'm gonna go out. I need to travel, I need to go elsewhere, get out of here.
No, I agree. And I think that's why like that a lot of the inspiration for why I thought this was good, because, you know, just puts that one marker down of a place where you can point to, where you can now start to find individuals, and it may be small, but it'll grow over periods of time, and then it's just about finding the right individuals who are willing to, you know, bring on board something that they can teach and educate to the next ones coming through. But like, so we talk a little bit about like sustainable fashion and stuff. So talk to me a little bit about like some of the charitable organizations and stuff specifically you've worked with.
So
I know not all of them are, you know, as focused as they may look like they are from the outset. It's a nice way of saying it.
So I've got a background in like so like I mentioned, like in like international development sense, so like you know, I do enjoy like looking things holistically. So naturally, when I look at change, I do look at it in the biggest form possible, which is international form. So, you know, what the international world is doing about famine and like, you know, climate change and all of that, and education across the globe, you know, because, you know, there's a big disparity between areas, you know, from West, which is, this is the global West, you know, the UK and Europe, and then the global South, which is, you know, places like Africa and so there's a massive disparity. And not to say that there isn't amazing institutions and stuff in like places like Africa, there are, but you know, there's just a lot more opportunities here, unfortunately, just based on like the world history and how, you know, we've come to get here. Like there are, so I've always been interested in that sense, in those kind of organizations. So as part of that volunteering, like, you know, I worked with VSO, so I worked with them, like ICS was a program about ICS, and then they also do NCS, which is like the smaller national change kind of thing. And then I currently work for a youth charity. So
NCS and ICS, remind us, and obviously the viewers who may not know what those abbreviations are.
They are, so NCS, National Citizen Service. So a lot of young people, even older people, depending on who you are as you're watching this, may have come across it. They tend to go around schools and connect with like young people to get involved in like local action, that kind of stuff. I never really got involved, funny enough, with NCS. So usually people start with NCS and then move over into ICS. So ICS is then international. So it's basically the one up from NCS. So it's all these abbreviations are
I know, there's abbreviations. Everything's abbreviations now, isn't it?
So International Citizen Service is ICS. So then that's when you go international about a project. About a project. It's quite it's like I want to say vigorous, but it's not that vigorous, I guess, if you're passionate about it. You go through different stages of interviews and like sort of talking about like to like the people that are interviewing you, like what you're passionate about, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, that kind of thing, and what you aspire to do to create positive change, and not just locally, internationally as well, like because that's what it's about, is looking at things holistically in a global sense. So I got involved in that, and and like I said, currently I'm like working for a charity, and it's like youth charity. So, you know, running campaigns, like one of the main campaigns that I'm working on at the moment, it's for lowering the voting age to 16 and 17 year olds. You know, as everybody knows, in England, 16 and 17 year olds can't vote, but a lot of people are more aware about democracy and politics and creating change, and this is just, it's not just nationally and looking at MPs, but locally, looking at local councillors, looking at how educational services work. A lot of young people have ideas and opinions about this, how they want, what they want, like things as simple as what do they want to learn in education. You know, I think a lot of young people, but even just like the older people and even teachers have realised that maybe the things that, like the system right now, the teaching system, you know, teachers working long hours and having to have so many responsibilities, not just in teaching, but like making sure that a young person's, they have to be mental health practitioners, some of these teachers. It's like
therapists,
all sort of things. So like, you know, just that kind of stuff, like, you know,
they deal with a lot.
So yeah, so currently working on lowering the voting age for young people, which hopefully should come soon.
Yeah,
you know,
that would be a good one. I mean, there's a whole bunch more people.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of people, should I say?
Yeah, there's like 1.2 billion. Is that a billion or million? I should know this, but yeah, one of those. Young people in the UK that don't have the right to a voice to things that affect them, everyday education, health, you know, work, career, enterprise, all of that stuff. They don't have a voice in that, and a lot of them are aware and sometimes even smarter than older people. So
get more clued up
on
what's going on, especially now because information is now distributed digitally.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not in books anymore. Because no one's reading any books. So now it's all online. So young people tend to be more on their phones or more online than most. So I can definitely agree that younger people are being exposed to these things at the very least. So it's like in the past it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Whereas now, I definitely think that, you know, young people are affected because they see it.
Because it affects them. Because the like rules that are being enforced by them really affect them. You know,
100%.
It affects where they end up in life, what they end up studying, how much they end up paying for like fees in university and all of that stuff. Like, it really does affect them,
and their parents' jobs and things like that too, who are looking after them.
So like, it really just. Yeah, if we're gonna have like a fair and equal democracy, then it's the part of that is including everybody.
100%.
You know?
No, I hear what you're saying. That does make sense in terms of bringing more awareness to those young people. To be, I mean, you know, certain privileges do become available to you as a 16 and 17 year old. For example, you can start driving, so essentially you could potentially take the life of somebody on the street driving a car, but you can technically vote to get somebody in office who might change the laws of driving. It gets very funny when you get into the fine details of it, but no, I like that in terms of just focusing, bringing awareness to certain things. And I think that's kind of where we are in today's society now. It's, you know, you find a purpose and a passion that resonates with a body or a community of people, and then you find ways to actually turn that into a real actionable thing. So it can be marketed, and whether it's sold or it's just distributed, one of the two. I think it's important to get those messages out and for people to know what your morals are, what you stand for.
Definitely.
You know, coming to the table. So, like, sounds like you've had quite a well-rounded, holistic approach to your upbringing. You know, you kind of got the chance to travel a little bit. And just in general, we have like quite a grounded mentality when it comes to, you know, supporting the community, but also still being realistic in terms of we got to eat. Like we said at the beginning of the day, we live in a first world country where, you know, finances, business is predominantly the factor that dictates our success level, unfortunately. You know, in other parts of the world it's a bit more based upon things that are you could say more based on, rooted in humility, more rooted in, you know, the natural simple things in life, food, music, art, creativity, the things that are harder to put a tangible price on. It's a little easier to just kind of be a little bit more free and easygoing, which means that, you know, there's room for people to come in and to capitalize if they're clever about it.
Definitely.
So I think once we do spread the awareness and you start to teach people, again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We bridge the gap with the youngsters, not just youngsters, older people as well, people that maybe aren't tapped into some of these messages that go on online.
Yeah.
And then they're able to, create and take that information to use in their real world.
Their real world, in their lives.
It's not just empty conversations that they just end up having and forget about. It's actually real things that they can affect their real life. So
definitely.
Leading on from that, I do want to make a very quick announcement in terms of another project that we're working on, because we're going to get onto this on another conversation, but I will going to be working ongoing with Hali on another project that I'm very passionate about, which is you guys have already seen, which is Mind to Motions, and it's very much about again furthering those conversations and spreading more awareness for certain real things, which I think is important when you're building projects, is to have something that you can market, but then also having a story behind what you're actually marketing as well. So there's a reason for everything, if that makes sense. But so we talked a bit about charity, we talked about the fashion. What are you currently focusing on at the moment? Because I know that you're just getting close to finishing up with uni and things like that, right?
So
how's that all going?
It's going well. My fellow students out there, you know how it is when you're like trying to wrap up doing the big disso at the end of your degree. So currently just coming to the end of my masters in policy.
Nice.
And I guess that's the kind of direction. What's really like good for me is that I feel like what I'm doing career wise, as well as like things on the side, kind of like links in together anyway, because I found it really hard to just not do something that I really enjoy. That's just not me. There's some people that can just get on with it, like this is life, I need to get the money, I need to pay my bills, so I can do that. But with me it's been very difficult. So I'm lucky in a sense, because I found something that I enjoy that's also going to help me make money as well and like live.
Best of both worlds.
I can't, I'm thankful for that I've kind of like found my way and what I'm passionate about. So just like being involved in projects like this, I'm really glad like you pulled me into this. I'm just excited to do the Minds to Motion talks with Theo, and just like really like delving deep into certain topics, and I think like I guess what I've got to bring to it is like really just want to share my output from my sense, being a female, being a black woman, being a Muslim, all these different perspectives that are from minority backgrounds and areas, really just like shining that and like connecting all of that into these conversations is something that I'm really looking forward to. Agreed. And exploring that, because I know like obviously people watching this, there'll be those of different backgrounds, different religious faiths and stuff, and it's important for everyone to connect and really see where they could what resonate with, what they could resonate with, and that's what I'm looking forward to, just sharing that for people that can resonate with aspects of myself. So I guess that's what's next for me, really, just is exploring from that work side, obviously continuing in like policy and try and shape the world. Who knows, I might be your next MP.
Listen, don't ever say never.
Never say never. You never know. Who knows, like I'm just really interested and passionate about making change. And
the beautiful thing is as well, I was going to add to that, is that we actually live in a time where you almost don't need to be in politics to affect politics.
You don't.
There used to be a time where you had to be something in politics. You had to have a certain role in order for anything to happen. But now you can see, if if you have a message and you're consistent enough with that message and you put it in the right places, you can affect change in multiple areas now,
100%.
Without having to actually be on the forefront of dealing with the bureaucracy or the red tape.
Definitely.
You could say the system. Because if we're being completely honest, I think the problem with government systems is that it took them so long to form. It's now they're living off of what the formation is, as opposed to what it actually should be about. So
that's a good point, because one thing that people think about is that or maybe it's something that inspires them to be in those sort of positions is having the power to make that change. But what they don't know is that even as much as there is obviously some a good amount of power that you get out of it, but there's also so many restrictions to that. But then if you're outside of that, like Theo said, there's so many ways people can make change now, like especially that now that we have the digital media, we've got social media, like it's so easy to make change if you're if you have the passion for it and enthusiasm, and like if you're really like determined to make change, like you can do it. It's not impossible. And the greatest aspect of that is, like as Theo's already mentioned, is having that freedom to do it how you want it, and not having those restrictions holding you back, saying actually you can't say that because you're going to upset the boss, or like it's going against your party, or you've got the freedom to pitch it out and just be real with it and not be afraid, and just like really just like make that change that you want without thinking about who might just fire you, or take not pay you, or
try and get you kind of blacklisted.
Exactly. So
we live in a very unique time now where we're getting, and you could say we're having the largest amount that we've ever seen of people's opinions online.
I agree.
Which can be a good and a bad thing. If they're focused, I think it can be a good thing. I think what happens is sometimes we're overwhelmed by an insane amount of opinions online now, and some are very, very valid. But because we're so used to receiving so much of them now, it's almost like tomorrow, the likelihood that you're gonna still be paying attention to that opinion from yesterday is so slim now. The staying power has gone down.
Definitely.
In terms of people's willingness to stick on a project and actually see it through. So before they've actually got anywhere and actually made some change, they're kind of distracted by another point, which is also equally valid. But there could be 1,000 equally valid points and opinions. Which one are you going to focus on?
Definitely.
Because you're not going to get through all 1,000 or 2,000, whatever it is, of them. So I think it's about kind of bringing things back and simplifying, and this is why, again, another reason why I think it's good speaking with you, who comes with the female perspective. It would be slightly different, but there's a lot of similarities, and obviously our approach to the things that we're passionate about. But I definitely think we're in this time where it's important, like you said, to bring those individuals from different backgrounds, minorities, different religions, different race groups, and really start to push aside a lot of that nonsensical stuff, so that we can start to focus on things that are actually important, like skin pigment really dictating the difference between us having healthy food or clean water or access to resources is kind of irrelevant. But that's a pastime thing that I think it did hold certain people and groups back for a period of time, but I think if we continue to live there, we'll never really move forward. We'll only ever really be arguing about things that ultimately we're never going to change. So I think paying attention to the things we can affect and showcasing the reality of how similar we actually are as people, as opposed to being different.
Definitely. I think naturally in the world people tend to focus on differences, but like you're right, I think that's one thing that definitely want to work to highlight is as we do the talks and stuff, is actually the similarities that we do share.
That's right.
Like I say, like you can always resonate something with someone. There's always something from a human perspective, as little as something as it is, there's always something that you might be able to relate with someone, and that's what really should be highlighted. And I think if we focused on those kind of things as like a human race, like there wouldn't be half of the problems as we have right now. It's because we tend to look at differences. It's like, you're different, you're like this, no, like this, I'm from here, you're from there. And that's why we do have some of these like problems in the world, I think. But it's about just looking to see where you could really relate on someone. There's always the different levels, and there's always something that you can relate with someone with. And just looking to see that aspect and being more positive about life and living in harmony with one another, whether it's like globally or even in just locally, like I
mean, you make a great point, and I mean, I think that's the reason why I think today we live in such a capitalistic society, is because essentially certain people have been able to profit greatly from people's differences. You don't tend to find similarity makes a lot of money, unfortunately.
That's true.
So when you're very similar and you will kind of get along, people, unfortunately, money is created through difference. It's created through the fact that I don't like this, you do. Who's going to win? And then there's usually a loser and a winner. And in society we've grown up and lived in, and I still think the element of meritocracy and creating value is important, but I definitely don't think that us trying to separate each other more than actually focus on the similarities is a good thing long term. Because overall, eventually all that happens is people get divided, and then certain groups just don't get access to certain things. Then resentment builds,
and then there's
jealousy
war,
builds,
on
greed
bigger levels.
builds, all of it, like there's so many different factors, but I think it starts from the commonality, the similarities that we actually share, and being able to do what we're doing now, sit down, share space, share time, and I've always said this, anyone who comes on the pod, it's not even like I could care less about what they do. I care about what they do. However, I care more about the time they've invested to come and sit down and share, because that can't be replaced. We can always make more money, we can always create more opportunities, but you can never get time back. So when somebody chooses to come and spend their time and share some of their story or some of their life experiences with me and obviously the audience, for me that's the way the real value lies. And that exchange is the real value, so want to quickly let people know that please keep your eyes peeled in the next couple of weeks, coming months, because we definitely got a few creative ideas for wanting to kind of rekindle a little bit what we was doing before, in a kind of similar way. But I think it's just so important to always keep those community ties, local connections close. And one thing I've realized as well is that it's so crazy to think is that I think we look so far outside of our social groups and our communities sometimes that we forget there are actually truly inspirational and amazing people right around us that we just don't know of. And if we was to know more of them, I think that we would begin at home, if you would. We would start at home and then take that out, as opposed to, unfortunately, where we come from in Slough, the stigma is you have to go outside of Slough to gain the actual real important information and education. So if we can start to bring that down a little bit and be able to actually say, hold on, wait, there are a few places starting to sprout up where there's, whether it's community groups, whether it's support services, whether it's just creative entrepreneurial people that want to create business. I think there are so many in and around this area that can actually provide that route into the real world in many different places, so these things and these projects and that we're talking about today, that hopefully they do resonate and connect with people that are local and abroad as well. You can do these things in your local areas and reach out past that after the fact. But I think you always have to start at home. You always have to start where you come from, because that's where your bread is buttered. That's where you're born and raised, and there's certain things that you'll be able to understand and know naturally where you come from, that you're gonna have to constantly ask questions in other places. One thing I'm very proud about walking through Slough or going to the gym or meeting with anybody I know is that they know I'm from here. So it's almost like you start to build a small army of support of people that like I remember when you used to play football here, I remember when you did this, I remember, and you're from where I'm from, so certain people out there who can't do some of the things that, you know, we can, I think it's incumbent upon us even more that we actually go out and actually make those things happen, you know, for them as well. So it's a big holistic package that we're essentially trying to put together of inspiring people, and you know, this is just the beginning, I think, of us reconnecting and really starting to build a positive connection. It's just great to sit down and hear a little bit more of like who you are obviously as an individual. You're going to be seeing a lot more of her, so you're going to get to see a lot more, and we'll talk a lot about a lot more as conversations go into the future. But was there anything else that you wanted to highlight in terms of local things that you're working on, or even just bring awareness to certain things that you're passionate about right now?
No, I think I've talked a lot today. No, just to reiterate what you said, Theo, just looking forward to just connecting and reconnecting as well, because there, like Theo said, there will be others that you're gonna come across and be like, actually you were like right around in my circle, but we just never really sat down, had that conversation. You know, I do like to see Slough as a close-knit community. Those that have been born and like sort of like grew up in this area do know each other.
They do,
so, or like have a mutual friend that connect.
Everyone's connected
by someone or something. So just looking forward to like bringing those voices to the platform, and really just highlighting what people are doing, the amazing stuff that's going on in the community, what people could get involved in, and really just forming like a network of people, businesses, individuals, professionals that could transform the community to something greater, something in a place where people would want to stay and invest in, rather than go out and like leave.
And feel like they have to,
or feel like they have to.
Like if people choose to, that's fine. But
absolutely, just like making it a place that people would want to, like, you know, be happy to be in. Because I think it is a great community. I think it is a great area. You know, we are like, you know, essentially like in the middle of a lot of places around, like close round. You know, we've got like Windsor, we've got like Reading. We're connected in so many areas, and I think it's time more than ever right now. It's a perfect time to sort of highlight what Slough has got to offer, and I think it's a lot, and there's people here that have a lot to offer, and it's time to just like really highlight and put them on the platform and showcase that amazing work and things that are going on here.
I mean, like, I will kind of tie this off, but before I let the lovely lady finish off with words of wisdom. But
lovely lady.
I would say, for me, the most enlightening thing that I've experienced in recent times, two of them, should I say. One is the work that I'm currently doing with the Casual Ballers. You know, shout out my guys, the Casual Ballers. Just, you know, we're all about, from the coaching perspective, we're all about really giving these guys and giving these young boys growing into men the values of what it actually takes to have a professional mindset. Because what I've tend to find across the different people that I've met in my life, from in the artistic world, in the creative world, to sport in football, is that many of them have to develop a professional mindset to be successful, and then, you know, the byproduct of that professional mindset is the transferable skills into almost whatever you want to do in life. There is no limit once you develop a professional mindset, because it sets a certain structure and order to the way that you handle your life.
It's like the foundation to like what kind of person that you can become. So like, I realized that working with them, I'm getting to, it's kind of like full circle, because I'm getting to showcase and, you know, teach and share with them things that I have had to learn growing up, but I'm only really appreciating the value of those things I've learned now. That tends to be the case, isn't it?
It's the full circle
effect.
It's the
full circle,
you know, of like
it's seeing like when you get the older generation giving advice to like the youth, and
you young kids, You remember when parents used to say that, oh, you young kids, you'll remember this. And,
you will remember this. Oh, that's literally comes out of my mum's mouth every day.
I tell you, no, it's so true. And like, you know, you just have to be cognitive of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'd say I'm so blessed in the, you know, to feel that with these latest 2 projects, particularly with the Casual Ballers and, you know, the work that I'm doing here now.
Yeah.
Is that I'm getting to be able to share transferable skills with young people who, you know, I see a little bit of myself in them. You know, got a chance to go back to my old school, Hershey Grammar, recently, and it was just incredible just to be like, go back through the same main foyer entrance, and see certain things you recognise that are familiar, but at the same time be like, wow, like a lot has changed. Because of just the time, and haven't been back there in such a long time. But then you know, having conversations with my PE teacher at the time when I was at school is now the head of PE.
Oh wow!
And it's just so crazy because you just think to yourself, wow, like look at how much time has passed. But then, you know, as you talked about the full circle, it's, for me, I see it as a blessing to be able to go back into these environments and then actually to say, you know, I've actually gone and done the things you taught me. I've gone and fulfilled those things in the real world. Because so many of us can get lost or boggled down in the real world, and we've got to, you know, sacrifice certain things to just get by and live life. So you know, for me, I look at it as a massive blessing to be able to go through these professional environments, and you know, to actually have real things now in the real world to give back to the people going there. So it's crazy. And overall, I'm just, as I said, like, this is, I believe, the beginning of a positive building of a network and a community. And you know, working with yourself is going to be another great eye-opener to just kind of learn a different perspective and a side that I haven't you know, maybe seen before. But before we leave and wrap up and leave the lovely people, I would like for you to leave the audience with a couple of words of wisdom for anything that you could think of.
You're putting me on the spot here.
Yeah, I always like to do that.
What do I even say?
I always like to think of what would the young version of you like to hear or be interested.
I've always found that question really tricky because I feel like I tend to give like the most cliche answer.
Sometimes cliche is good though. I mean, the thing is, cliches can kind of, unfortunately, if it's cliche, it's like less people will talk about it because they think it's cliche. But it's like you forget some people that may be what they need to
maybe
hear.
It's what they maybe we just need to keep saying it until they do actually take in that cliche.
Repetition.
True. What can I say? I would say, you know, when people say start that action, just do it. I would say start that conversation, just do it. That's what I would say.
Okay, I like
because growing up, I was a very shy person. Like, I just wouldn't talk to anyone. But now looking back at it, I wish I'd just gone and said hi, or gone and said, hi, I've got this idea, or just started that conversation. So instead of just starting that action and stuff, just start that conversation. That's what I would say to my younger self, is don't be afraid to speak out and say something and offer advice, or because that advice can change someone's life. You never know. So I'd say that's what I'd say. I'd say start that conversation, pop up on someone's LinkedIn, you know, whatever. Like, there's no, like, what's the worst that can happen? Them not responding. So that's the message that I would leave you guys with. I think that resonates well with this podcast and the new projects that we're going into. It's essentially about conversing with different people from different backgrounds and stuff. So I would say, like, don't be afraid to just reach out to someone and start that conversation. No,
I agreed. I like that, and I think one, it's just been great having you on here just to kind of speak to the people, I get to speak with you, and I'm looking forward to some of the stuff that we got upcoming, because I think it's gonna be good for, you know, people in our shoes, or kind of people that, you know, want to walk down these roads and do some of the things that we've done before, whether it's, you know, support work in charities and different community organizations, or creating with different artistic companies and creative brands, to be able to sell yourself, market yourself, or even just find a lane within that world that makes sense for you. So overall, I think I see this as a point of reference. It's not going to be the be all and end all, just like nothing is really, but particularly where we come from, I think that we can have a strong impact based upon the people that end up listening to these conversations. So with that being said, I would like to thank you very much for you coming on and sharing the positive energy. And as I said, there's going to be a lot more.
Definitely looking forward to that.
Bunch of different creative projects coming, but I hope this message reaches you guys well, and as always try and bring people onto the platform who just can offer a positive outlet, a positive way of thinking, and maybe offer something in terms of a transferable skill or a bit of information that can really help you in what you're doing in your day-to-day. But outside of that, even if it was just kind of cool to listen along and you kind of agreed with certain things, that's also good too. So we're just that reaching point, that bridging point for the community. And stay tuned, because we got some cool ideas, and 100% we're going to be taking over this whole town in terms of
we're going to be taking over this town.
that's going to be happening for sure, because it's been too long, I think, that Slough hasn't had a voice of people that are young, on the pulse, connected, and have the ability to be that bridge between the generations as well. The young people coming up, the elderly people that the older generations that have gone before us. They don't have a voice as well.
Everyone has insight to give. Definitely, connecting the different generations of the town to really try and think about what the future can hold for everybody. So definitely
100%. Before we leave, where can the wonderful people find you online? I'll put the description. Everyone will be in descriptions, of course.
I mean, I'm mostly. I've had Twitter for a really long time, but I lost my old account, so don't go and find that one.
Okay.
But
Twitter.
Find my new one down below. Can I say down below?
Yeah, of course.
Find my new Twitter down below.
Right.
But mostly, I'm more active on Instagram. So if you want to connect, I'm probably most likely to respond on Instagram.
Cool.
That's where I'm that's my creative zone.
Okay.
So
she's getting back on the fashion scene as well too. So I see you've been doing some reels and stuff lately. You've got to get in there. You've got to let the people know.
You've got to let people know.
Trust me.
Definitely.
But Hali, it's been really nice though. We'll talk.
No, it's been great. Honestly, I'm looking forward to what's to come and stuff.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Stuff coming very soon. And other than that, I hope you guys are staying blessed, staying healthy wherever you are in the world, listening to this message. And if you do or did enjoy this conversation, feel free to share it along with somebody who's comes from the Slough area, maybe is into support communities, creating art, all sorts of different things. Share this with somebody that potentially would maybe connect with this message. And until the next episode, we will see you very soon. Peace and love, beautiful people.